Welcome to the Iferia TechCast, where we bring you all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today we are joined by Erioluwa Asiru, a software engineer and fintech architect who specializes in constructing the complex, high-stakes systems that power the future of global finance. As an engineering manager at Cycle Funds, Erioluwa leads teams in building secure, scalable financial infrastructure, navigating the critical intersection of cutting-edge technology, rigorous compliance, and real-world impact. Her work extends beyond code to mentorship, guiding the next generation of engineers through data epic to unlock their potential and tackle systemic challenges. In this episode, we'll explore the architecture of trust in finance, the engineering of secure innovation, and how to build a career at the forefront of technological transformations. So, Erioluwa, it is an honor, and I am very excited to welcome you to the show. So, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Ezekiel. I'm very happy to be here too.
Great to have you here. So, let's get started. Your work sits as the fascinating crossroad. Software engineering, financial systems, and also blockchain technology. So, what I like to know, what first drew you into this specific intersection of technology? So, was there, a particular event or a particular period in your life that allowed you to have experiences in each of these fields that now prompted you to combine your experience into where you are right now?
Okay. Yeah, before I got into financial technology, building financial technology, I was first a general software engineer building normal regular apps. But with time, I think I was very curious about how financial systems work, and I understand how volatile and how important software engineering in fintech space could be different from every other aspect of programming. For example, how crazy people can be when it comes to money, right? So I think that curiosity
Mm-hmm.
was something that really was a drive for me when I got into like the first time I ever worked in the fintech space. And I wanted to know what exactly goes on behind the scenes. Is it that there's addition or subtraction, like the same way we communicate when we purchase things? And that curiosity drove me, and it's something which has really sustained me because there's always a new learning experience. So yeah.
All right. That sounds like a really fascinating journey for you so far, Erioluwa. So, you are currently an engineering manager at Cycle Funds. So, can you give us an overview of what you are currently building, what you are currently doing at Cycle Funds?
Okay. At Circle Funds, we deal with thrifts. So thrift, a little background on thrift in case someone doesn't know what thrifts are. So this is a round robin system here in Nigeria, very popular in Nigeria and other aspects of Africa. I'm not certain to how many countries this is being practiced, but something that's practiced in a lot of countries in Africa, which, let's say, a group of friends, 5 people, 4 people, more than 2 people, right, come together
Mm,
and they have a certain amount they contribute at an interval of time, duration of time. So let's say monthly or weekly, right? And at
mm,
every interval of time, the payment goes to one person. So it's like a group of people
mm,
coming together to loan each other, and there's a payback throughout until everyone gets paid. So we have this automated on Circle Funds. One other fascinating feature we have on Circle Funds would be our community treats, where, as we all know, the way based on the description I gave of thrifts, it's something that is usually practiced between friends because trust is very important here. And we understand that
mm.
it is possible you might not find people within your friend circle who can afford what the kind of amount you are looking to contribute or to receive. So based on your bank statements, based on your activity within the app over time, we have models that helps you generate a certain amount. We feel like we are comfortable with you being a community with other people in to be part of this trip, and everyone gets paid. So yeah, that's a rundown of what we do here at Second Fund.
All right. That is indeed an interesting and innovative tech you guys are working on at the
Thank
moment,
you.
I must say. So you have worked on turning complex ideas into real world solutions. So can you share a story about a time, a point in your career, that a project looked very different on the whiteboard and than it actually did when it got to the hands of real users? So is there any such story you have to share?
Yeah, I think an example of that would be Circle Fund. That's a very recent experience around that. And if you understand how these trips works, it's something that is a very manual process, right? Usually people contributing to a certain bank account, and then the person managing the account now tells everyone so person has paid. Once some people haven't paid, the person gives feedback to the team that someone is owing, and this is why the person that's supposed to be the collector at this interval of time hasn't gotten paid. Now it's a very interesting experience because one thing is no human in the loop as much as possible. We are making sure it's not like from the hub somebody is in the loop, right? So at the end of the
Mm,
day, it's a very automated process. So we have so many automations running behind the scenes to make sure that all of these are well automated. Sometimes you would expect that this would be the best experience for the customers. They prefer if they just know that only one person is owing and everything like that. But at the end of the day, they want to know specifically who is, and then building, going back to the drawing board, coming back and automating what usually was a manual process was something that I think we found really challenging. There are some points in the development cycle that you could almost imagine that I'm not very certain we want to automate this process, or this process is very possible to be automated. And then a deeper dive, more thoughts into it, you realize that just one way or the other, you can find a way to automate this process. So that's like something that I found like was initially complex diving into it, but one step at a time got simpler.
okay, okay. So the way you explained it, of course, I know what you're talking about, but for the guy who is just hearing about this trip thingy for the first time, so these people, they put their money into it and it goes around in cycles until it gets to their turn to collect the sum from it. The cycle of people that these funds is cycling about, you know, uh, today is Mr. A's turn, this next week is Mr. B's turn. So do they get to interact with each other? Do they get to know each other, or is everything just automatically done on the app without them knowing who else they are interacting their funds with together to get it cycled around?
So yeah, it's very important that the traditional tree system usually involves friendships, right? It's something
Yes.
that is a core of friendship, right? But at the end of the day, it's from an app, right? You all don't necessarily have to know each other, but we still present a certain level of information that still lets you know who the person who might be owing is, but we don't give enough information for you in case
Mm,
this is not someone you know in your everyday life. Maybe it's through referral from a friend that the person joined
mm,
that particular group. We don't give out emails, we don't give out phone numbers. But at the end of the day, everyone has a username, or we call it slots, because the
mm.
traditional trip system, so you could pick more than a slot that you want to pay. So that
Yes.
means you pay, if you pick two slots, you pay twice as much as every other person in the group. So we have these slots that are named, and admins that create the trips are in charge of managing this. Now they don't have to manage payments or everything. Every single thing is well automated, but the admins knows everyone, and you can reject the slot name someone has given, because someone could go ahead and just give a name like I am daddy as like their name. All right. So that can be
Mm,
confusing to every other person. They don't know who that is at the end of the day. So the admin will be the one to decide whether the slot name is ideal or not ideal, accept that or reject that. So everyone might not know enough information about every other person in the group, but you know who has paid based on the username they picked for that slot, the name they picked for their slot. And you know who is owing, and then we know who is getting paid. So we give information around that to the users, but not enough information to maybe have an interesting stalker.
okay, all right. That was a really valuable information about your software. So, Erioluwa, this tool you are building, is native to people who are used to doing it manually with their close friends, with their work partners, and all of that. So most of these people, like in our local communities here, most of them are not too tech inclined. Some of them have just button phones with little buttons and screens. They are not so
Yeah.
tech inclined to use tech tools. So I like to know, how do you educate these people that there's a tool like this that can help them automate everything, make it secure, reduce the risk of someone pulling out unexpectedly and causing commotions and stuff like that. How do you find these customers and educate them on this particular tool you're building, which is very helpful for them, in my opinion?
Okay. Thanks so much for that question. So the first thing is that I would like you to know that we did not get it on the first trial. We couldn't convince users that
Mm,
this is supposed to be where you go to for anything. We had people reaching out to support at intervals that I'm trying to create a thrift. I can't find people that have joined my thrift. I saw them when they applied, but I can't find them again, whether accept or decline. So what we did is first, myself and my co-founders have engineering backgrounds. We were classmates when we were in the university. That's a little background. And trips is something we did together. And when we were done with the university, we thought, we came back together. We're like, oh, there should be a way to automate this process rather than have someone who would be like an admin that would be in charge of this. So, fast forward to now, we built this app as if every other person is as tech inclined as ourselves. So what was
mm,
the most important thing is that we listen to feedback. So there's a lot of trial and errors. We had beta stage, we have MVPs. We also even have our beta testers right now that they experience the beta version of the app first. They let us know if something is feasible, something is not something, and experience they necessarily like. It is very important when building fintech apps to listen to your customers because these are the most important people. You won't use our app by yourself at the end of the day. So it's a lot of feedbacks. I don't I think I don't like where this button is. It would have been better. It would have been a better experience if I could find the button here. And then we listen, we take these feedbacks, we go back to the drawing board, build again. Some of them very tiny fixes, some of them big fixes, but we make sure we prioritize the feelings and the experience of the customers before we release or even after we release features.
all right. Ask this question for the young developers, and students just starting out their engineering career. So, what's a significant technical or architectural lesson that you've learned from working in this high stakes environment of fintech that you think will benefit someone, who is building any kind of critical system?
Okay. There are two things coming to mind right now. One, I'm sure everyone is very familiar with that. First to be that you always have to start simple. Nothing complex. Solve your problems with something, start from the something simple or start with the most basic solution to your problem before you start optimizing for traffic for a lot of users. You are your own first user before you have to build for every other person. So consider yourself first, make it as simple as possible before you go into complex, before you start thinking about, well, what if there are five people that are supposed to use this place? Don't worry about that. Just start small
Mm,
and your app will grow with you. There are cases where you can suffer from success. Maybe you expected that based on projections, you are going to have like 30 people using this by the end of the month, and at the end of the day, you have 100. It's fine. This you give yourself space to grow and chance to grow. Another thing is, most importantly, solve your own problems. Quite similar to the first point I mentioned, solve your own problems first. It is easier for you to understand where you're solving problems for yourself than solving for problems for other people. For example, I can't decide that I want to go and build something in a space where I'm not familiar with. I'll give an example. Maybe, for example, I'm not someone who is very conversant with hardware technologies and building an hardware system, something like that. So I'm not going to start building a system for something because it's fancy, it sounds cool, it's very cool to hear that I'm building something like that. But at the end of the day, it's not something I'm very familiar with, right? So build for yourself first, solve your own immediate problems before you consider solving problems for other people. So I think those are things I feel like will help you not get overwhelmed starting out as a beginner software engineer.
all right. That was a really, really powerful advice, Erioluwa. Thank you very much for sharing it with our audience. So let's dive into your leadership part of things, the conversation. So you are also a mentor and a leadership advocate at Data Epic. So I'd like to know what's one common question or concern you hear from aspiring engineers and your mentees who wants to break into fintech or tech leadership generally. So what's the common question you get from them, and what's your advice you normally give to them to respond?
Okay. I'll start with the beginners first. The big question beginners always ask. So for Data Epic has run about a couple of cohorts now. We just concluded the fourth cohort, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I've taught in different levels: the beginners, the intermediate, the beginners without experience, beginners with experience, right? So one thing I noticed recently in the last cohort is my first time lecturing or teaching in the beginners without experience. And the big questions they always have is, when do I apply this? Like, what real world example is this concept I'm teaching? Is I'm teaching conditionals, I'm teaching loops. At what point do I use this? And that's usually a big question they always have, because they don't see a practical example sometimes when you're taking these things. And the answer I always give is, as much as I want to convince you this is where you would use it, just follow through and it will piece together eventually. It will make sense. Most of the lectures, most of the things you are learning, platforms that allows you, that helps you to train, they have a pipeline, they have a process, right? If you follow through with it with the order in which it is presented, usually it pieces together. Don't put pressure on yourself when it's not piecing together. It usually pieces together right at the end. And now for people who are usually like intermediate, they've gotten a couple of experiences, they've built a couple of things. The big problem for most of them is they want real world examples. They want real world experience, not examples. Now, compared to
Mm.
the beginners want examples, the intermediates have examples already, do you understand? But they really want real world experience. It's not something I'm building on my local host on my laptop. They want to be within a company and to be, and that's when most people start aspiring and trying to get a job at that point. And yeah, that's usually the big problem. When does it, when do I get to experience what exactly this is? When do I get to solve people's problem, not just write this code on my laptop? But in short, it all pieces together eventually. It all comes together eventually. Just keep being at it.
All right, all right. So, looking at the future of financial infrastructure, Erioluwa, what's one emerging technology or architectural pattern that you think is currently underrated but will be fundamentally important in the next, say, 5 years? Is it blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, or something entirely different? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, subjective from my perspective, right? I would
Mm-hmm.
say it's artificial intelligence. We all see the rate at which it's going, and it's something, it's the buzzword right now, is where everyone is drifting towards. And it's, at the end of the day, it's not just a buzzword, right? It's not just a concept. It's not just something everyone is trying to attach to, because we are seeing its effect real time. For example, I talk about the community trips that we organize, right? These are part of the things that made these things possible. With this, it's something that has helped us to grow from being the ones. If we want to do this in a real world, if we want to do this in a world where there isn't artificial intelligence, right? It would be us going through the experience, going through every customer's history, have humans in the loop, trying to make sure that they pair these people up. This can take days, in fact. And it's something that can be done within a minute through running it through like a model you've designed. So this is like a very big feature. This is like the biggest thing that's happened to software engineering in a while. And attaching yourself to it, taking advantage of it, it's good to want to be different, but taking advantage of it will do you more good than harm. Although there are still sides to it that you probably want to take it easy on, but talk about general usage. It's something I feel like everyone should take advantage of, because it makes life easy, it makes things faster than it used to be.
All right, all right. So, for someone in our audience who is about to make the transition, say from a junior engineer or a senior engineer to the role of an engineering manager, so what's a hard mindset shift that you think someone has to take, and what skills do they have to build that they didn't expect at first? Or, for example, let's use you as an example. What was a hard mindset shift you had to take, and what skills did you have to build that you didn't expect at first before becoming an engineering manager?
Okay, yeah. So I think I'll start with like the challenge I had the most transitioning into leading in engineering space is that I did not learn to accommodate being a leader fast enough, right? That's like one mistake I made. So I'm seeing something is not going the way I want to be it to go. The first thing I'm thinking about is, oh, I thought so much like an engineer than as a leader at that point. The first thing I'm thinking about is, okay, I need to fix this. So I go into it myself, I fix it, and I'm like, oh, I released the PR to fix this already. And then I
Mm,
realized it was getting overwhelming because you can't fix everyone's code. What you need to understand is understand delegation. It is more of a leadership position than an engineering position, but your
mm,
experience as an engineer is also very important. And you should also understand that you will find cases and situations where you don't know what the engineer is doing, in the sense that you've never interacted with that tool. It's totally fine. It's totally fine to learn, even at that point. Try to understand what the engineer is doing. Sometimes I'm seeing a concept, I'm seeing something I'm not very familiar with. You go into it, you look it up, you understand what it is, and then you can give feedbacks whether you think we should make use of this as a team or we shouldn't. So be very open to learning from people who you lead, because at the end of the day, leadership is not command, right? It is just being a representative of everyone's thoughts. So be accommodating of everyone's thoughts. Don't see it as your opinion is the most important thing. At the same time, understand delegation. You are not supposed to be the only one to fix every problem. Let people under you also understand that they need to be leaders in the tiny things that they have been assigned. You are just overseeing everything in general. That's something I feel like everyone trying to transition into an engineering manager role should understand.
all right. So let's go back to circle phones. So I'd like to know, has there ever been a time where you experienced a major technical challenge or a setback that was kind of like a hassle with you and the team for a while? And tell us about it if there's any. What caused it? How did you go about it? What toll did it take on you and your team? And how did you eventually come out of it?
Yeah, so one thing first is I have an experience in fintech development before in something similar, the similar company before I've started building second funds. So as much as you prepare for many occurrence, sometimes you never find yourself preparing for some too at the end of the day. So one of the
Mm.
things is that we had a downtime with one of our processors, one of our partners, and at the moment we only relied on that partner at that point we only relied on that partner, and there was a downtime which had customers. Now when we are talking about money, there's no patience. I'm trying to withdraw my money, I have money on your app, I'm trying to withdraw my money, you guys are telling me something is failing, or and please try again later. It's fine if I hear it the first time, but it's going 2 hours, 3 hours, getting to about 24 hours without a fix on this. You will begin to see a lot of complaints. People who probably they have very little amount in their account are going into like Google Play Store, dropping like negative comments, just um getting agitated because of this, and it's very understandable, right? So this is one experience that I feel like really was not a very great experience when we had this experience. But one thing that was a solution afterwards was making sure that you always have a fallback anytime. You can't totally depend on your service providers in some of these cases, right? You have backups, you have transitions. So once there's a failure on one side, you transition into the other backup at that moment. And then once things are settled, if you feel like that particular service provider is more reliable, you go back to the service provider, and that's how we got out of the situation. We had to do a very odd fix, provided another alternative, and ruled that out before we got complaints would be very significant.
All right. So, as a mentor right now, what's one piece of career advice you find yourself giving to, the young ones starting out their career, or, currently that are currently at, junior roles in the engineering space. So, what's an advice you find yourself giving them that you wished someone had given you earlier in your career? And also, if you can go back in time, Erioluwa, to give yourself one piece of advice when you were just starting out your career in tech, what would it be?
Yeah. So sometimes software engineering can be very challenging, which is that you're stuck on the bug. It can be something very simple, can be something like a typo error that could be the cause of the problem you're having, but it can keep you awake for days trying to figure it out. So it's usually you get stuck, right? And it's very important that when you get stuck, take helps, right? Which is one of the things we are doing in the typic that I'm a mentor for. There's nothing you would gain from being a superhero and trying to fix your own problems by yourself. Sometimes you could
Mm.
save yourself the headache. When you get helps from people and people help you out with your problems, they don't only fix that problem for you, because I mean the reason why you don't want to take help is because you want to solve your problems by yourself. You want to be independent, right? Now, they don't usually just solve your problems for you. They tell you why you're experiencing the problem, and you don't get to fall into it eventually. So be very willing to take help. There's nothing you gain from being a superhero and solving all your problems by yourself. It's fine to try at that. You try to solve your problem, but if it's taking too much time, take help. Mentorship is very important. Another very important thing is similar to the last one, not being solo, is being part of a community. Being part of a community is very important for every beginner software engineer. You are going to have it really tough doing it all by yourself. From opportunities like getting mentorship opportunities to even getting access to tools that might be of value to you, to even getting a job, you always need a community for these things. So a community is very important, and mentorship, help from other people is also very important. That's something I'd go back to tell myself, to join more communities than I was in when I started out as a software engineer.
All right, all right. Those were really, really powerful advice. Thank you for sharing with us, Erioluwa. So, part of the theme of this podcast is centered around innovation. And for that reason, I like to reserve at least one question on innovation for every guest I have a conversation with on this podcast. So, tell us, what does the word innovation truly mean to you? And how does this relate to your work, your life, your role as an engineering manager in fintech, and as a mentor yourself? I'd like to hear your own meaning of the word innovation.
Okay. I think first the thing is, my perspective to innovation is, it does not have to be complex. It doesn't have to be a big thing for it to be an innovation. It's just something that was not thought about before, right? That you thought about and fixed. For example, a way you are preventing frauds or people who possibly manage to game the system to get more funds in their wallet, for example. It's the solution to that problem. There's so many things or so many solutions, so many preventive measures to it, right? And one thing I'll say, an example of innovation you could come about is, maybe you have a system in place that really checks all of the wallets, and every time there's like maybe a withdrawal, it checks like recent transactions and try to find out if there's some discrepancies in the wallet. Now that's an example of something I'll call innovation. It doesn't have to be complex, it can just be something very simple, but saves you from a very big damage, or helps you to prevent a big damage, right? So
Mm,
that's what innovation means to me. It can be an advice from someone on the team, can be an advice from the internship team, and from an intern rather, where you've been
mm,
thinking about, oh, we have this problem, how do you go about it? And the person just said, why don't you just do this? It doesn't have to be a special programming complex, it doesn't have to be some special algorithm that was discovered in MIT or something. It can just be a very simple perspective change from someone who has been thinking about something that is from a very complicated perspective. So simple solution to a big problem. That's one thing I appreciate more when it comes to innovation.
okay, okay. That is indeed an amazing meaning you just attributed to the word innovation. So, lastly, Erioluwa, for our audience, our listeners who are interested in this conversation and wants to go learn more about your work and connect with what you are doing at Cycle Funds. So, where is the best place for them to go to learn more and perhaps also connect with you on LinkedIn?
Okay, yeah, the best place to connect with me is actually on LinkedIn. I
Okay.
am active on there, which is Erioluwa. That's exactly my name. Erioluwa on LinkedIn. That's where you can find me. And feel free to reach out. I will be expecting your messages in my DMs.
All right. Erioluwa, it's been a really interesting and insightful conversation with you. And I am truly, truly excited to have you on the show today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, Ezekiel.